What do you think Donald Trump's definition of peace is?
I mean, I hope I'm going to be remembered as a peacemaker.
The main thing he says he wants is this.
I'm doing this to save lives more than anything else.
It's about stopping people from being killed.
Think of the parents of all these people being killed, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine. I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately.
To Trump, stopping people from actively killing each other is the same as ending a war.
You know, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars.
The 6 wars he's talking about are India versus Pakistan, Israel versus Iran, Cambodia versus Thailand, Egypt versus Ethiopia, the Democratic Republic of Congo versus Rwanda, and Armenia versus Azerbaijan. Now, 5 of those conflicts are basically just frozen in place. They're not over. The fighting may have stopped, but they haven't actually solved their underlying dispute. They've just kind of paused. One of them, though, has actually led to a peace agreement. It's the one between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
It's a long time, 35 years they fought, and now they're friends, and they're going to be friends for a long time.
At the signing ceremony in early August, the leaders of both countries talked glowingly about President Trump.
I think President Trump deserved to have a Nobel Peace Prize.
So maybe we agree with Prime Minister Pashinyan to award President Trump with the Nobel Peace Prize because...
For years now, Trump has been after the Nobel Peace Prize, at least partially because he thinks it's unfair that Barack Obama got one.
Because when Obama got it, nobody knew what he got it for, including him. Remember, they said, "What did you get it for?" I don't know.
The guy he's tasked with winning that prize for him is his great friend Steve Witkoff.
If not for President Trump and his team, and our great friend Mr. Witkoff and his team, probably today Armenia and Azerbaijan would have been again in this endless process of negotiations.
So how exactly is Mr. Witkoff going to bring about world peace? Well, according to Trump, everyone does like this guy.
He likes Mr. Witkoff, I can tell you that. That's true.
Mr. Witkoff has been talking to Israel, to the Palestinians, to Russia and to Ukraine. But what, aside from being a great dude, are his peace negotiating credentials? What can he actually achieve? We're going to be taking a look at who Mr. Witkoff is and the work he's already been doing in Armenia and Azerbaijan. What does this peace deal tell us about the prospect of more deals like it? I'm Matt Bevan, and this is If You're Listening.
I have no idea what's going on except for I'm supposed to be on a date with Donald Trump.
A lot of people have a lot of opinions about Donald Trump. Many hate him, many love him, but back in the 80s, Steve Witkoff went a step further.
Oh no, I wanted to be him. By the way, everybody wanted to be him. He'd come to 101 Park Avenue where I was a lawyer. He had this swashbuckling style. I used to see him come in and I used to say, God, I want to be him.
This is Steve Witkoff gushing about Donald Trump in an interview with Tucker Carlson earlier this year.
I don't want to be the lawyer. I don't want to be the scrivener. I want to be that man. Yeah, I can remember saying that. Yeah, he was like the Michael Jordan to me, of the real estate business.
This was when he got to know Trump professionally.
I was doing a lot of work for Donald, who was really a great client to work for.
Witkoff started getting into real estate in 1985, buying up rundown apartment buildings in uptown Manhattan. He ran the properties himself, collecting rent in person with a pistol strapped to his ankle, and doing plumbing work for the tenants himself.
I think we had a very, very good reputation in those neighborhoods. We ran our properties responsibly. We didn't have rent strikes at our properties.
After a few months on the job, he was at a deli when he found Donald Trump standing at the counter. Trump had no cash on him for his ham and Swiss sandwich, so Witkoff bought it for him. When they bumped into each other again a few years later, Trump fondly remembered what he called the sandwich incident.
He became my friend as a result of those experiences back then.
Trump jokes that he was the inspiration for Witkoff's transition from lawyer to property developer.
He saw me do it, and he said, if Trump can do it, I guess I can do it, right?
By the mid-90s, Witkoff was well on the way to becoming a property magnate. He was about to start buying up extremely high-profile buildings in the financial district of Manhattan.
So he had 10 Hanover. He then bought one Broadway.
One Broadway.
Then you had Exchange Place,
We had 20 Exchange Place, yes.
another building on Maiden Lane.
80, 90 Maiden, 33 Maiden, and 95 Maiden.
Witkoff's property empire was growing rapidly, based on some pretty big loans. He and Trump became Manhattan's dominant property barons, and also close friends. The two split their time between New York and Palm Beach, Florida.
He's become a very wealthy, successful man, and he's my pal. And it's nice that you're here, Steve. Thank you very much. Really great. Special guy.
Witkoff says Trump was an important person in his life. There for the good times, which were mainly just playing golf, but he was also there through the tough times, including in 2011, when Trump was there for him through the worst moment of Witkoff's life.
When I lost my boy Andrew to an opioid overdose, the pain was unbearable. But as usual, Donald Trump showed up.
Witkoff spoke about Andrew's death on stage at the Republican National Convention last year. It's understandably an incredibly traumatic event for him.
After Andrew passed away, I found myself clinging to my son's memory, even his things. His college ID is in my pocket right now. I wear his ring since he died.
Witkoff remembers Andrew as a sensitive young man who cared deeply for people. He tells a story about how his son looked after a group of homeless people who lived next to their apartment building in New York.
My son got to know them all. He fed them every evening. He became their friend. When he passed away, all 12 came to his funeral.
He wanted to do something to honour his son's memory and his kindness to those who weren't so fortunate, which inspired him to ask Donald Trump for a favour. The two played their regular round of golf, and then over lunch, Witkoff asked Trump a normal question that every dude asks their best bro at some point in their life. If you're elected president again, can I be the envoy to the Middle East? Whatever you want to do, Steve, Trump replied. So despite having literally no qualifications as a diplomat or a, international affairs negotiator, Witkoff wants to bring about world peace in the name of his son. It's an admirable endeavour, and from what I can see, I really don't think that he has any other ulterior motive.
This sense of sensitivity or empathy that I have, I can relate to them.
When it comes to peace brokering, what Witkoff lacks in experience, he makes up for in cliches.
I'm always trying to put myself in the shoes of the other person, because a good deal has to work for everybody.
Now, this interview he did with Tucker Carlson is an hour and a half long, and I listened to all of it because I wanted to hear some examples of him putting himself in the shoes of others.
It's important for me to know or to have a feeling of where the Israelis want to get to. What about the Qataris? They're the mediators at the table. What do they want to accomplish here? What about Hamas? Where are they?
So he's got the feel for Israeli and Qatari shoes, but how exactly did he get access to Hamas's shoes?
I've never been in the same room as them, which is a little bit weird, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. So he definitely hasn't tried on their shoes. The Qatari government just kind of describes them for him.
We trust the Qataris. If I didn't trust the Qataris, then that would be really problematic, not meeting with Hamas.
Okay, so what do the Qataris say Hamas's shoes look like?
Well, I think they want to stay there till the end of time, and they want to rule Gaza.
Yes.
And that's unacceptable. So we have to know that. We had to know what they wanted. What they want is unacceptable.
Right. So you heard both sides, and you decided that what one side wanted was unacceptable. The art of the deal.
A good deal has to work for everybody.
Right, so how do you get to a good deal that works for everybody if the deal involves one of the sides compromising on basically everything they want?
That's what Hamas wants. That's not possible.
Witkoff's dream deal involves Hamas no longer existing and them being okay with that. Now, obviously, this is what most people around the world want, but how do you actually achieve it? Well, that's the problem that peace negotiators have been dealing with forever. Witkoff's approach appears to be, it doesn't need to be that complicated. What if you just pick a winner? Figure out whose shoes feel more comfortable and just go with them. They get to keep the land that they have claimed, and the other guys can keep their shoes, maybe. Just stop fighting and we can all stay alive and make some money. Bam. world peace. Art of the deal. But can it work in practice? Well, it seems to be how this peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia has worked out. So let's take a closer look at that and see if there's any clues for how the other conflicts might turn out. In April 1988, people watching the nightly TV news in the Soviet Union were shown something they had never been shown before.
These are the first pictures Soviet citizens have seen of the rioting in the city of Sumgait. But it's also believed to be the first program documenting internal dissent ever shown on Soviet television.
Never before had Soviet citizens been able to see evidence of protests or ethnic violence occurring inside the Soviet Union itself. And yet here it was, on national TV.
I imagine those Soviet viewers, and there must be millions and millions of them, who have had to rely almost exclusively on Soviet coverage of these events. This will come as a surprise, and it will give them a lot of information, and it will be quite an eye-opener.
So what's going on here? Well, we're in the South Caucasus region, which at the time was all part of the Soviet Union. It's a mountainous region which connects Russia and Iran between the Caspian and Black Seas. So we're talking about Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. For centuries, the Caucasus Mountains have kept the ethnic groups there apart, leading them to develop distinct individual cultures. It helps to look at this area on a topographic map because it makes the different regions way clearer. So the highland areas of the mountains are dominated by ethnic Armenians. They are generally Catholic and they speak Armenian, which is a European language. The flatland area between the mountains and the Caspian Sea is dominated by ethnic Azerbaijanis. They are generally Muslim and speak Azerbaijani, which is a Turkic language. So despite living right next to each other, Azerbaijanis and Armenians have totally different cultures, religions, and languages. If there was a clear border that separated these two different populations and everyone stayed on their turf, there probably wouldn't have been a problem. But that's not how things work in the real world.
Nagorno-Karabakh is occupied mostly by Armenians, Christians who've squatted there for generations. But the land has traditionally belonged to Muslim Azerbaijanis.
So here's where things get really complicated. There's a tiny bit of Azerbaijan close to the border called Nagorno-Karabakh, which is mainly populated by Armenians.
The Armenians want control of Nagorno-Karabakh, formally handed over to them.
And in February 1988, in the Armenian capital, there were big protests over this piece of disputed territory.
The Armenians were supporting co-nationals in Nagorno-Karabakh, the enclave in neighbouring Azerbaijan, where Armenians form the majority and seek formal attachment to the Armenian Republic.
A counter-protest kicked off in Azerbaijan, which escalated into a massacre.
For 3 days at the end of February, gangs of Azerbaijanis ran amok, preying upon the city's Armenian minority. Horrendous reports have leaked out of Armenians butchered in their dwellings or hurled from windows.
Over the following 3 years, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the two newly independent nations of Azerbaijan and Armenia went to war over the tiny region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
He's only one of dozens of ethnic flashpoints in the rapidly collapsing Soviet Union.
This is the story of the 20th century, basically. Large empires drew arbitrary borders through the middle of various ethnic groups. They dropped a smoke bomb and left them to sort out their differences.
It's unlikely there can be peace here. The hatred is too deep.
In Nagorno-Karabakh, the problem remained unresolved, with Azerbaijan and Armenia technically in a state of war for decades, and both sides committing terrible atrocities.
In the 1990s, 30,000 people died in the fighting, and over 1 million were displaced.
While Armenia developed into a messy but functioning democracy, Azerbaijan slid into an oppressive dictatorship.
The Azerbaijani president Ilham Aliyev is widely accused of multiple human rights abuses.
When it comes to his leadership style, Ilham Aliyev is a lot like fellow tyrannical dictator Vladimir Putin, although he's about 3 feet taller than Putin, and he has a mustache and he doesn't really take his shirt off for photos. But he is an authoritarian who rigs the democratic system to make sure that he wins every election in a landslide.
Our service received allegations of intimidation, witnessed even physical attacks on journalists in the lead up to an election day, which we saw seriously flawed.
Just like Putin, he removed term limits so that he can stay on as president indefinitely. He's also made his wife the vice president. Putin's partner has to settle for being the chair of a state media outlet. Sad.
Azerbaijan's government is closing down for international scrutiny, and this is very sad, especially when there is upcoming parliamentary elections in Azerbaijan.
In 2012, Aliyev was named Corrupt Person of the Year by the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. Putin won that award in 2014.
Azerbaijan's government has a lot to hide, namely the appalling human rights situation that is in the country.
Also, like Putin, Aliyev has spent years making inflammatory statements saying that a neighbouring country doesn't really exist. For Putin, that neighbouring country is Ukraine. For Aliyev, it's Armenia, or as he calls it, Western Azerbaijan. Putin calls Ukrainians Nazis, and Aliyev calls Armenians fascists who cannot be trusted.
That if Armenian fascism raises its head once again, we will smash it with an iron fist.
In Aliyev's Azerbaijan, anti-Armenian sentiment is basically a state policy. In 2009, Azerbaijani authorities interrogated more than 40 people who voted for Armenia in the Eurovision Song Contest, questioning their national loyalty. I've listened to the Armenian entry from that year, by the way, and look, it's fine, but I'm not sure that I'd risk the gulag for it. Despite all of the similarities between Putin and Aliyev, though, ironically, they're not allies. Putin's Russia has actually supported Armenia through the conflict against Azerbaijan. But things heated up in 2023 when President Aliyev saw an opportunity to settle the territorial conflict once and for all. As Putin became bogged down fighting in Ukraine, Aliyev banked on Russia being too busy to help Armenia too. It began with a blockade preventing food from getting into Nagorno-Karabakh.
The Red Cross says it hasn't been able to deliver aid across the Lachin corridor linking Armenia to the region since July. Azerbaijan says it set up a checkpoint there for security reasons.
And then, the hungry citizens of Nagorno-Karabakh were suddenly under attack.
Last week, their lives changed forever after a lightning military operation from Azerbaijan forces seized the region in just 24 hours.
The entire Armenian population of the region was forced to leave.
Armenians who say they're being forced out because ethnic cleansing is underway. Many have nothing left and fear for their lives. Why did the world look away, this woman asks.
This is ethnic cleansing, so it's important to demonstrate the forced displacement of these people, to understand that this isn't a voluntary exodus.
Azerbaijani forces invaded and occupied parts of Armenia. Russia did not come to help. Within a few days, Nagorno-Karabakh was entirely under Azerbaijani control. President Aliyev said if they fought back, they would be crushed. So, you've got a pretty clear-cut case of one country with an allegedly corrupt dictatorial leader ordering an ethnic cleansing and invasion of a smaller, weaker democratic neighbour. Western allies condemned the invasion by Aliyev and called for a ceasefire between the two nations, but peace negotiations had stalled until Donald Trump and his peace envoy Steve Witkoff entered the chat.
For more than 35 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan have fought a bitter conflict that resulted in tremendous suffering for both nations.
Trump, of course, made sure that he made the subsequent peace deal all about himself.
Many tried to find a resolution, including the European Union. The Russians worked very hard on it, never happened. Sleepy Joe Biden tried, but you know what happened there. He tried for probably 12 minutes and didn't work out.
As far as he was concerned, he had solved all the problems in this decades-long conflict in a matter of weeks, and also caused Aliyev and the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, to overcome their historical civilizational animosity and become best bros.
I think you two are going to have a great relationship, I have no doubt. And if you don't, call me and I'll straighten it out, okay?
The deal was finalised by Trump's best bro, Steve Witkoff, who visited Azerbaijan in March. As far as I can tell, he didn't actually visit Armenia, which is interesting because when you look at what was signed away in this peace deal, all of the actual compromise was done by Armenia. They've given up any claim to Nagorno-Karabakh. They aren't even asking for the right of return for the people who live there. They've also surrendered territory for an American road to be built between two regions of Azerbaijan. It's going to be called the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP. Understandably, this has led to protests against Prime Minister Pashinyan and a lot of opinion pieces accusing him of capitulating to Azerbaijan. But is there any upside of this deal for the Armenians?
Well, we anticipate significant infrastructure development by American companies. They're very anxious to go in to these two countries, and they're going to spend a lot of money, which will economically benefit all three of our nations.
There you go.
A good deal has to work for everybody.
What is the point of dying over historical feuds or cultural connections to land or defending human rights? There's money to be made. That's how the world really works, according to Witkoff. He says anyone who thinks otherwise, who thinks that we can't allow a precedent to be set where one country can use force to intimidate another country, is naive.
I think it's a combination of a posture and a pose and a combination of also being simplistic.
What does this mean for the other conflicts that Trump and Witkoff are working on solving?
And our policy is that Hamas cannot continue to exist here. That's the president's policy.
Certainly, Israel has the power to totally destroy the Gaza Strip and eradicate Hamas forever. But should they be allowed to do that? Meanwhile, Russia has invaded a neighbouring country. Should they be able to keep the land that they took?
I don't regard Putin as a bad guy. That is a complicated situation, that war, and all the ingredients that led up to it.
You don't say. And that story is next on If You're Listening.
You are the single finest candidate since the Nobel Peace, this Nobel Award was ever talked about.